In the early morning of March 12, 2526, 8 representatives of the scrappy colonial insurrection met on board the frigate Bellicose in deep space. These individuals included the relatively recent UNSC deserter Major General Harper Garvin, Petorazoias of the Gao Liberation Force, La Reine Castilla, a notorious privateer who furnished the rebel movement with stolen goods and who was captain of the Bellicose, Nancy Ander, daughter of the deceased leader of the Secessionist Union on Harvest, Riza Lindbergh of the Venetian Militia, Bahito Noti of the Freedom League on Jericho 7, Erland Booth of the Biko Independence Army, and Nemesio Breit of the People's Occupation on Reach. They met to discuss anomalous activities in the outer colonies. Bizarre rumors were spreading without substantial confirmation, all following the evacuation of Harvest, and the Council's first order of business was to dispense with speculation and establish hard fact. It was Harper Garvin who brought the facts. An advanced alien alliance known as the Covenant had declared war on humanity and was advancing through human-controlled space with intent to destroy civilized worlds. First contact had been at the aforementioned planet Harvest. Upon hearing this, the envoys were at first silent. Nancy Ander broke the silence by voicing her own disbelief. Apparently, her sources reckoned that Harvest's evacuation was a ploy to rid the planet of insurrectionist elements. Another delegate, Riza Lindbergh, replied that she doubted whether the colonial military authority would be willing to go to such lengths just to control the population, which in turn introduced the subject of Spartans, faceless, efficient killing machines who barely seemed human and were loyal to the United Nations Space Command. This is where Petorazoias, who was looking for an occasion to assert the value of the Gao Liberation Force, stepped into the conversation. The GLF had intel on the Spartans because of a spy in a secretive all-prowler outfit known as Task Force Yama. This spy was Hector Nieto, a man who incidentally had worked with the infamous Colonel Robert Watts. The threat that these super soldiers posed to the insurrection was, to them, all of them, manifestly disquieting. The rebels on Jericho 7 had already been nearly annihilated. So the United Rebel Front's problems were threefold: the general UNSC oppression, the alien invaders known as the Covenant, and the Spartans. The spy in Task Force Yama, however, presented them with an opportunity to do something about all three. The delegates were briefed on Preston Cole's plan to execute Operation Silent Storm. Its parameters included harassing the Covenant invasion fleet and destroying Covenant capital ships, mainly through boarding action and planting nuclear devices inside their hulls. Because the next Covenant incursion was expected to be at Biko, Task Force Yama was on its way to forestall the attack. Erland Booth of the Biko Independence Army was naturally concerned. His homeworld was at stake. An idea to turn the situation to their favor inevitably appeared, suggested by Riza Lindbergh. Though she stated this in vague terms, General Garvin and Petorazoias eventually offered an idea to wrest control of Biko from its chancellorship and attempt to bargain with the Covenant. However, Lindbergh was not happy with this idea. She preferred to offer the URF's assistance to its colonial oppressors in return for their world's independence and protection. She reasoned that there was no way to know if the Covenant wouldn't simply glass them all with indifference. The delegates had been made aware of the Covenant's tactic of glassing worlds. Her proposition gained some traction with Ander and Booth, but it was ultimately passed over in favor of providing the Covenant with information on the Spartans and the ambush at Biko, with hopes for their cooperation and the safety of planets with insurrectionist ties from Covenant invasion. Nemesio Breit had openly suggested that they reveal the location of Earth, but Garvin was decidedly against such brash and straightforward dealing. He instead proposed that they wait and see if the aliens could really be trusted, and when all the Spartans had been dealt with, then they could hand over Earth's location. Petora added that if the UNSC gained the upper hand in their war with the Covenant, the insurrectionists could ransom their independence from the unified Earth government with the same information. This brought the Council to an agreement from all parties, either generous or reluctant. Thus, a coalition of insurrectionists was formed, and they would stage their revolt of Biko's government on its third moon, Siba, putting the plan into execution. Unfortunately for the rebels, Task Force Yama also chose the icy moon of Siba for their surprise attack on the Covenant fleet. Despite having anti-air emplacements and a large number of troops, the insurrectionists were ultimately subdued by Black Dagger ODSTs and Spartan II operatives. Upwards of 300 insurrectionists were captured in the process, including Harper Garvin and Patora Zoyas, Erland Booth, and possibly a few other delegates. Prior to this event, the URF was able to dispatch a recorded message to members of the Sangheili Silent Shadow. These elites were surveying the planet Amasa, which the insurrectionists anticipated would be in the Covenant's warpath. Though their message was delivered at the cost of their courier's life, it reached Fleetmaster Nizat Varosi of the Fleet of Inexorable Obedience through the discretion of Silent Shadow First Blade Tel Satulai. The message, recited by General Garvin, explained that the insurrectionists were not a part of the UNSC and should not be treated as such, and it went on to invite the Covenant to Siba in hopes of building an alliance. As proof of goodwill, and more importantly, value, Garvin informed them that there were elite special operations soldiers known as Spartans who were responsible for the destruction of the Covenant ships at Chai Chedi 4 and Netherop, and who were intending to do likewise to the Covenant fleet at Biko. So the Covenant came as requested, but they didn't find the URF at their prescribed meeting place. Most of Task Force Yama fled before the Covenant's Bloodstar intrusion flotilla realized what the situation was, but enough prowlers were caught in evacuation to warrant a battle. The rebels were loaded into one of their own captured Banta-class transports and supposedly sent down to Biko. In the confusion that followed, the ship instead sneaked away largely unhindered. It ended up pursuing the Bloodstar vessel's Sacred Whisper and was somehow not immediately attacked. The Banta transport, the Emmeline, was detained by the Sacred Whisper and eventually boarded by First Blade Tel Satulai and his Jiralhanai escorts Castor and Orson. The brutes went without weapons as per the order of Satulai, who did not intend to attack the rebels, at least not before he knew for sure what they wanted and what they could offer. Led by an insurrectionist, they made their way through the corridors of the human ship until they were brought to a conference room where 11 of the rebels were gathered, including at least 3 delegates from the earlier council. The insurrectionists had stolen a Havoc-class nuclear device from Task Force Yama with the intention of giving it to the Covenant for study. However, when the First Blade and his escorts boarded their vessel, Erland Booth grabbed the nuke with the intention of bartering the survival of both ships for the safety of Biko, which was under attack by the Covenant invasion fleet. Once Satulai understood the situation, he distracted Booth with a gesture, then snatched the warhead from him and promptly used its large casing to crush the man's skull. But a countdown had been activated. 50 seconds. The First Blade allowed Patora Zoyas to take it from him, and she quickly asked for help in disarming it. General Garvin evidently had enough experience to do just that, and he managed to shut off the countdown and prevent their imminent deaths, gaining some small amount of respect from the observant First Blade. Garvin proceeded to offer the warhead as a sincere gift, which the First Blade had Orson accept for him. The general then explained that the incident with the UNSC on Siba was an unforeseen synchrony. Satulai doubted this, but in his mind concluded that the ice quarry held a particular purpose for the rebels. They wanted to supplant Biko's leadership and step into the resultant power vacuum, and who better to help them than the Covenant? Garvin also offered him a data card with schematics for Mjolnir Mark IV power armor, which was accepted by Castor on the First Blade's behalf. Finally, the general stated the terms of their agreement. In exchange for control of Biko, the Covenant would receive the rebels' help in thwarting Spartan operations. Satulai readily accepted the offer out of his sheer hatred for the Spartans, but he knew that any pretense of an alliance between the insurrectionists and the Covenant would vanish just as soon as it stopped being valuable to the latter. True to his sect, the First Blade of the Silent Shadow stayed silent for the entirety of his time aboard the Emmeline, and communicated only with gestures. So it was when he gave Patora Zoyas a superluminal communicator with which the rebels could contact him. This scene is the last to feature any of the delegates of the Insurrectionist Council in Silent Storm, save for a mention of their explanation for failing to predict the Spartans' attack on the Fleet of Inexorable Obedience's logistics convoy at Edelin. They are not heard from again. Considering that Tel Satulai eventually died fighting the Master Chief, and Fleetmaster Nizat Varosi glassed the surface of Biko, it is currently unknown what became of the alliance between the United Rebel Front and the Covenant. I hope that you enjoyed this lore video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, and comment down below if there's a topic in Halo lore that you'd like me to cover next. And I'd like to thank my viewers and subscribers for 55 subs. It really is fantastic to see this channel get the traction it has. God bless you. I probably wouldn't be making videos without your interest and support. Until we meet again.